Thank you, Phoebe, for that very warm welcome, and a huge thank you to Firebrand for inviting us to participate in the Firebrand Sprint. We're delighted to be here. And to all of you who've joined us today, I want to say a huge thank you. I know, it's a really, really busy time on a Friday. We're all trying to get everything done for the week and tie things up. So thank you for making the time to come over and listen to our research on women in cybersecurity. I just want to share a little bit about myself as well on a personal front. I'm a mum to a 14-year-old. I live in a little village outside Cambridgeshire, have a very supportive husband, so I can do the job I do. And I love animals. I've got a little chihuahua called Treasure who's sitting here with me this morning. He always sits in and listens to presentations and meetings, and we have some veggies and a couple of rabbits as well. So all go today. And today is obviously Macmillan coffee morning. So I do hope you have your coffee with you to listen as well as we go through this morning. I came to the UK about 20 years ago, so I'm an immigrant. I grew up in South Africa, spent formative years of my young adulthood in Greece, so I absolutely love Greece, and came to the UK and started a role that was very exciting at Pearson Education, which then drew me into international education, and here I am now at ISE², continuing that vision of international education. Thank you, Phoebe. If you can move on to the next slide, please. So ISE², for those of you who may not already be aware or not be a member, just give me a couple of minutes to give you a quick overview of who we are. We're one of the largest non-profit membership organizations, associations that offer training and lifelong security education to professionals. It's pretty simple, really. Our mission is to inspire a safe and secure world. And we do that by helping cybersecurity professionals affirm their knowledge of a broad range of cyber domains, as well as providing them with the training for continued learning throughout their journey. We're there to advocate for the profession and for the voice when it comes to legislation and industry level discussions on the role of cybersecurity and the role it plays in our lives. And even more so right now as we work through this period that is new to all of us and that has become really our new normal. We have more than 150,000 members globally in 175 countries, working on the front line of security and building programs with their teams that protect our way of life. It's an awesome responsibility, and one that our members take very seriously, and we are thrilled to be part of that journey. Next slide, please, Phoebe. The cybersecurity profession faces many challenges, but even more opportunities, and even more so in this current environment. The ISE² research team is dedicated to better understanding the barriers facing cybersecurity workforce. But we are focused on uncovering solutions that position those talented individuals to excel in their profession, better define their organization's data, and surpass their career goals. It is important that we do our due diligence to understand the variety of issues at play within the cybersecurity industry that affect our members and the community at large. Only through building this understanding and reinforcing our knowledge with data can we truly ensure that we serve in a leadership and thought leadership role and be a source of advice for cybersecurity professionals and those seeking to improve our national programs. Our research explores a broad array of topics, including quantifying the cybersecurity workforce gap, better understanding the representation of women and minorities within the field, salary benchmarking, uncovering more effective hiring practices, investigating management and leadership issues facing CISOs and CIOs, and more. Our Cybersecurity Workforce Study has become a highly referenced report in the industry as people try to get a handle on the size of the workforce gap, which is constantly growing, and how we might be able to address it. And part of the findings from that is specifically looking at women in cybersecurity, is what I am here to discuss with you today, and also learn from you on your views on some of the topics we want to discuss this morning. Next slide, please, Phoebe. A bit of background context. The IC² Security Workforce Studies is conducted annually to assess the cybersecurity workforce gap, better understand the barriers facing cybersecurity professions, and uncover strategies that organizations can use to recruit, build, and strengthen their cybersecurity teams. It provides insights on these talented individuals who are excelling in their profession, securing their organization's critical assets, and advancing their careers. For the most recent edition, we spoke with respondents in 11 major economies in order to gain deeper understanding on the global landscape. It is, as part of the survey process, that we also field our Women in Cybersecurity survey questions. This edition also offers the industry's first known estimate of the number of cybersecurity professionals currently working in the field, which is a huge step forward in understanding the scope and the challenge the industry faces. Next slide, please, Phoebe. As you will see on the data on this slide, we put a lot of thought into our respondent base, and you can see the breakdown of who they are here. The overall Cybersecurity Workforce Study participants came from 11 economies all over the world, including the US, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, UK, France, Germany, Australia, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. Quite a wide variety. One of the goals with the most recent study was to expand the sample size, which in turn increases the reliability of the results. We more than doubled the number of study participants from 2018, from 1,400 participants to just over 3,200 in 2019. The margin of error for the global descriptive statistics in this research is plus or minus 1.7% at a 95% confidence level. For our Women in Cybersecurity research, the data is based on responses from 975 women, 30% of the overall, who responded to the Cybersecurity Workforce Study. This in itself is an increase on the previous year, where women made up 24% of the overall respondent base. You can also see that while all of them have cybersecurity responsibilities, they come from a wide variety of industries and represent both smaller businesses and larger enterprises as well. Next slide, please, Phoebe. Thank you. We developed a method to estimate the size of the current cybersecurity workforce, a measurement that had not ever been provided by publicly available sources before. This calculation process was finalized first for the US based on the availability of the most robust market inputs. The study found that 805,000 cybersecurity professionals are estimated to be working in the US. The calculation was then applied to 10 other major economies where sufficient survey data was available. Together, these workforce estimates total 2.8 million. Our calculation uses US staffing ratios conservatively to extrapolate cybersecurity workforce populations outside of the US. However, we recognize that the US business dynamics and international markets and staffing models may not necessarily apply directly to all markets around the world. As a result, the size of the current global cybersecurity workforce should be considered our best estimate, given the lack of data of secondary sources available in some regions. Nonetheless, this provides us with a figure to work with when understanding the current size of the global workforce in cybersecurity, which, along with potential for more jobs, will let us look at the opportunities for greater gender balance and more women entering and progressing in the sector. Next slide, please, Phoebe. As you can see on this slide, the US has more than 800,000 cybersecurity professionals working today. No surprise that the world's largest economy would have this. The UK has the largest cybersecurity workforce in Europe at just under 300,000, bigger than France and Germany combined. Next slide, please. Now that we know the size of our current workforce, let's pivot to look at the size of the gap that exists in order to protect organizations from cyber threats. When you talk about estimates like this, it's really important to understand where the data is coming from. Here's why we think we have the most accurate gap figures in the industry. Unlike legacy gap calculation models that simply subtract supply from demand, our calculation takes other critical factors into consideration, including the percentage of organizations with open positions and the estimated growth of companies of different sizes. The calculation of demand includes the openings that are currently available, along with an estimation of future staffing needs. The calculation of supply includes estimates for academic and non-academic entrants into the field, along with estimates of existing professionals who are pivoting to cybersecurity specialities. This more holistic approach to measuring the gap produces a more realistic and representation of the security challenges. It also provides opportunities that we can understand that both companies and cybersecurity professionals are facing worldwide. So, how pervasive is this lack of trained staff? Well, just about 2 of every 3 organizations across the globe report a shortage. If we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe. There is a staggering problem given the sophistication and severe consequences of the cyber attacks that companies are facing, with 65% of organizations reporting a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. 51% of respondents stated that their organization is at moderate or even extreme risk of this shortfall. So I'd like to stop there and for a few minutes, just ensure that we can have some discussion around where we currently are. And the question I'd like to pose really to the audience is, how do we use the current working from home situation to encourage more women to join the industry? We recognize that there is a shortage. We recognize that we need to fill this gap. And what can we do using this current situation and turn it into an advantage for us? And I do want this to, let's try and make this into a collaborative conversation. So I'm not just talking at you, but rather that we can talk together as well.
I think working from home is obviously easier for a lot of women who might otherwise struggle to get back into the workforce or with their hours if they have children. But I don't know how sustainable it is long term for all women necessarily, or for businesses.
Thank you, Jenny. I mean, that's an interesting point. How sustainable is it? I mean, how do other people on the call feel about that? What we can see at the moment is that it's working. So, you know, we've been in lockdown since March. Many businesses have not gone back into offices. It is working, and the work that is done in cybersecurity can really be done from anywhere, really, in the world. I'm just curious, are there any you know, active professionals on the call this morning, and what are your views on that? From my perspective, you know, I think it's up to us women to really demand that this, you know, that this can continue. That we, you know, if women need to work from home, or carers need to work from home and have responsibilities, it's being able to stand up and say, look, this has worked and it is working, and being able to show what we can do in order to ensure that that can continue as well. It's clear that companies are able to work from home. I mean, you know, people are working from home all over the world currently, and we know in our own environment we can see that, and it's working successfully. For as an example, IC Squared, we went into home working from March this year, and our colleagues across the world are working from home, and actually it's resulted in a lot more collaboration and, from my perspective, you know, a better working environment, because we're able to get on, talk to each other at any time, and ensure that, you know, we all have access to the same data, and there's more understanding that we're working in a similar way as well. So that's resulting in a lot more collaboration. There's a point from Patricia on the chat, which is saying women need more encouragement by accessible training, most especially during this pandemic. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. Does anyone have any views on that?
I just wanted to go back to what you were saying before about women working from home. I think in the past, women have struggled with managers saying to them, nope, you can't work from home, you need to be in the office. And you're completely right. In this pandemic, I think we've all proved that we can actually work from home and juggle childcare at the same time. So hopefully those managers will now see us in a new light.
Absolutely, Ranisha. And I think what is possibly needed is those managers need training as well. One, the understanding that it does work, because we've been forced into the situation without any practice, any training, and it's working. And two, that support is needed, I think, both for the managers and then also the employees that continue to work from home when this changes. I remember very early on in my career when my boy was really young, and I had a manager who, if I chose to work from home, would call me constantly while I was working from home. And honestly, I was working, really working the full day, to the extent that he would, you know, constantly, probably never spoke to me as much during the week, but the day that I was working from home would just be constantly on the phone. And I think it must be a real struggle for someone like him in this period. And I'm curious really to find out when I can how he's dealing with it. But you're right. I think you know, there have been managers who have not accepted that, and it's up to us. You know, I always feel in my position to talk about it and to encourage it, and when we can, to continue ensuring that we provide that enlightenment, that we have to be able to provide women with the opportunity to balance working from home and their careers as well. And it's from a practical perspective as well. The industry there's a shortage. This cannot be filled only by men. So if businesses are not going to make the change or encourage the change, the gaps will not be filled. Absolutely. There's a comment in the comment box as well from Samana. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly. Is it Samana or Samana? Apologies if I haven't pronounced your name correctly. Who states, I also think that we need to start at primary, secondary school level to introduce IT and cybersecurity related subjects so that it is not new to the females when they get into college and are confident to take these subjects up as their career choice. I'm not sure what we can do in this regard. That is a really, really good point. There is a lot of initiatives currently that are being run out of NCSC as well to encourage more girls into the industry. But I completely agree with you regarding, you know, the education, that education starting earlier as well. The UK Cybersecurity Council is being set up, and a lot of that is looking at how we can build and increase the access to the sector and ensure that more people can come into the sector. But ultimately, it is going to have to start at school level as well. Absolutely. And there's that comment from Ranisha saying, yes, NCSE run a really good initiative for girls of school age. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think on that note, Deshni, I think we're going to continue. And then we'll continue with questions after, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing is that we will have time to hopefully at the end to have more questions as well. So if we can please move on to the next slide. Thank you, Phoebe. So the gap is rising. The gap is rising. And the cybersecurity gap has risen from 2.92 million needed professionals to 4.07 million this year. Growing economies around the world, combined with an increasing array of sophisticated cyber attacks, has led to a global surge in hiring demand. Knowing that we have an existing base of 2.8 million professionals already, we know the severity of the shortage in addition to the raw number. As such, we understand that we can increase our current workforce by 145% globally, we will fill the needs of organizations looking for cybersecurity support. Interestingly, the shortage is not balanced worldwide. In the US, where there is already 800,000 plus professionals working, the workforce would need to grow 62% by adding 500,000 new trained cyber staff. In other regions like Europe, the increase needed is just over 300,000. Next slide, please, Phoebe. The skills shortage is a challenge, but not insurmountable one. We have to realize that there simply is not the skilled staff out there to fill these roles. This means more training, more certification, but more importantly, more people. We must expand the field of candidates we are attracting to the sector and making cybersecurity more welcoming, more accessible, and more viable to a variety of diversity groups is essential. In a space that is a majority male role, bringing more women into the world of cybersecurity careers is paramount. Alongside the workforce gap, not instead of. And one step towards tackling that skills gap is bringing and encouraging more women into the field. If we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe. When we look at where these men and women come from academically, there are some really interesting takeaways. For one, there tends to be a misperception that cybersecurity professionals are all naturally gifted IT practitioners and have had a lifetime of experience in computer sciences education. But when you break down the percentages, the first thing you see is that nearly 1 in 4 did not advance as far as a bachelor's degree, and that 60% have come from an area of study outside of the computer science studies. This is tremendously important to understand in the context of the workforce gap we are talking about. Many women may feel intimidated by the prospect of working in cybersecurity and have been influenced by movies and TV to see it as a mysterious, shrouded, male-dominated discipline. I myself initially felt intimidated even applying for the role that I'm currently in. I went through 6 rounds of interviews together with Corn Ferry. And at each stage, I kept thinking, is that role going to go to a male? Is it going to go to somebody from the cybersecurity professional industry? And you constantly have that as a woman because you feel you need to be 100% meeting every single criteria that is being requested. The data shows that many of us and many people currently doing the jobs have valuable transferable skills from other areas. Not to mention the fact that 30% of our respondent base has women working in cybersecurity roles. We need more of that awareness if we are to flip the equation, and our industry needs to do a better job of helping curious individuals understand what it takes to get into the field and to demystify it. To make the field more accessible is imperative. And we at ISE Squared see ourselves as playing a very significant and integral role in that journey. We also see here that many of those in our industry are aging out at a time when only 5% of current staff are under 25 years old. If we don't do a better job of recruitment now and broadening the appeal of cybersecurity careers, we're going to be faced with an even bigger problem in 10 to 15 years, when 29% of those in the profession will now be retired or will be soon considering it. As we all know, that time does go by fast. So I'd like to pause there and just put a question out to all colleagues who've joined us this morning. What do you feel we can do, and how can we encourage more women to learn on the job? I mean, it's clear that transferable skills are integral and can be used, but what can be done in the workforce to encourage more women to learn on the job?
I think maybe you were right. I was talking about working from home, but also maybe more part-time work.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jenny. Yeah. Does anyone else have a comment on that? On part-time work and offering that flexibility?
JR makes a good point about women returning to work when children are more independent as well. So it's different ages and generations of women that are returning to work or starting a career in technology. And this should be part of the reflection and decision with women returning to work as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And women returning from work at different stages in lives is constantly happening. And one of the ways, that we're encouraging, support on this as well is looking at how can we look at, women having mentors, I think is integral. So looking out and women identifying mentors in the industry they can work with. At IC Squared, we have many chapters around the world, and our chapters open up their meetings to non-members as well. So, going into those chapter meetings and meeting professionals that are there and finding somebody that can mentor, I think is quite important for this change and for moving into the new career opportunities, but also returning to work as well. And it's quite daunting after you've had children to go back to work. You know, I've been there, and it's quite a scary feeling when you go back into the workplace. So you need all the support you can find.
Just one more question as well on this subject. Can I ask, is the cybersecurity sector doing enough with apprenticeships as well?
So yes, that's an interesting topic, and in fact, I think we've got. Is there anybody on the call with who's got more knowledge on apprenticeships? So in terms of the apprenticeship schemes, organizations need to meet the criteria in order to offer that. Not all organizations can. So organizations that do meet the criteria can offer the apprenticeship schemes, absolutely, and can continue to do that as well. And that is available. So that funding is available for organizations to pick up and to take that on. But in terms of how many cybersecurity organizations are offering that, I don't have that data on this call, so I can't really share that or state that, but it is available. So we, for example, had somebody in fact, on my team who's just completed an MBA at Cranfield, and she did as part of her extra module, she completed a module on cybersecurity, which was obviously in addition to what she did in her MBA, which gives her a lot more, and that she can take back into the workplace as well. But obviously she's working in global education in cybersecurity, but has chosen to do that module at Cranfield as part of her apprenticeship and MBA that she completed. So there are definitely opportunities out there, and it's sourcing them, it's finding them, it's asking your organizations about what is currently available as well.
Dashni, shall we continue?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe. Thank you. So, as you can see, we understand a bit more about the makeup of the workforce. Now let's look at what keeps them awake at night. Not surprising considering what we've just covered, but cybersecurity professionals state that their top job concern is the lack of skilled security professionals and personnel they work alongside. In fact, they are much more worried about this than even their own work-life balance, which goes to show the selflessness of so many in our profession. People in this profession, I mean, it's absolutely heartwarming, because what you see is that professionals that come into this industry really believe in the mission, really believe in the mission of keeping the world a safe and secure cyber world, and are keen to ensure that that lack of skill set can be addressed. On that point, I just want to ask, put it out to you in terms of, what do you think are the transferable skills that can be brought into the cybersecurity industry? And there's just somebody who's made a point on the comment box saying, more support for women changing careers into cyber. I've just switched over and decided to do an MSc. What else would you recommend? And then there's a point around commitments. So in terms of what else I would recommend, I'd like to just pick that up. If you're looking at changing your career, and yes, doing a master's is fantastic, it adds more to the career. I would say look at what other cybersecurity training you can do. What training is available. So Firebrand offer various training courses that are available. They offer shorter programs, shorter than a master's, that can complement the master's, and do look at those and see what it is that you're interested in and that can be helpful. And I do know that the team at Firebrand are available to advise and discuss. And I don't want to turn this into me selling ISE squared professional qualifications, but you will find that we've got many of these available at Firebrand as well that can be done. And then there's the boot camp where you can do a CISSP as well, which is a great complement to any kind of master's degree and will open up doors. Our research has shown, looking at job advert research, that many companies are asking for CISSP or asking for CCSP. So
Sorry, beg your pardon. Just one more quick question, and then if it's all right with you, Deshni, I think we'll move on. COVID-19 is having an impact on the talent pool, of course, consequence to today's climate. With more people looking for work, how do we as employers sort of decipher between people that are applying for work? What would you recommend?
I think ultimately you mean for employers would have to make a decision about what is the best, what is best for the organization? How can the organization ensure it continues to be sustainable? How can it get the best talent it can get? And getting that talent is ensuring that you've got people that have the skill set. Now, this provides this opportunity of COVID-19, working from home, less travel, not getting into long train journeys, saving money really on commuting. My recommendation will be invested in your own training. My recommendation to women would be take ownership for your own training. Don't wait and rely on your organization. Use this time that you have to get yourself trained. Use this time. There's lots of opportunities for online training, self-paced training where you can pick up and learn on your own. There are loads of MOOCs out there that are free as well. So, either invest the time. If you don't have the money to invest in training, invest the time. Find whatever you can that can add value to your CV so that when you go to an employment agency or you go to a new employer, or you even with your current employer looking for a new opportunity, you can have the most powerful CV ever. I would also recommend to women, when you're going for interviews or you're applying for jobs, ask them, how many women have you interviewed, or is your panel a mixed panel? Is it going to be a diverse panel that's going to be interviewing? I think that's absolutely important. And I'm feeling that is really, feel quite strongly about that, in that the panel needs to be diverse and we need to feel encouraged and supported to ask the questions. How many women are you actually interviewing? And if the organization is not, you should call it out. Absolutely call it out, especially in this environment. And most importantly, take ownership for your own growth, take ownership for your career, and find the opportunity to make sure you've got the most powerful CV that lands on that desk. And I can say that from experience. As a woman, you always have to have more than everyone else. It's been my experience. It's been my experience throughout my career. And I've constantly taken the approach of constantly adding more to my CV. And so getting into this role at ISE Squared, I felt very confident in terms of where I was, because I was constantly adding, constantly building, and it wasn't always paid for by my organization. I sometimes, took that on myself and took ownership myself to do that. And we have to do it. And
that's a brilliant point. Thank you, Deshni. Shall we continue to the last little bit so we have time at the end to continue with our conversation? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Phoebe. So if we move on to the next slide, please. With what we know about the industry's challenges, why would women want a career change into it? Why would they want to progress on a long-term cybersecurity path? Well, our research shows us several things. Women in the cybersecurity profession are committed to their roles for the long term. They view cybersecurity as a viable, rewarding career, and a solid majority of them plan to stay in the profession until retirement. And with people moving around so often, you would think organizations would welcome this loyalty from women who want to actually stay in these roles and want the opportunity to grow in these roles. In recent years, academia, non-profit businesses, and not-for-profits and governments have launched initiatives to draw girls to computer sciences and STEM fields in general. At an early age, and those efforts that may be paying off, given that many respondents stated that they sought out their career path before securing a cybersecurity role, with 2/3 saying they planned on entering the field while at university. Despite that relatively higher interest by women in cybersecurity, while in college, only slightly more than half, 53% of women interested in the profession started their careers in cybersecurity. However, the data reveals that women in cybersecurity still face disadvantages such as income disparity and obstacles to success in the field, such as discrimination. 22% of women, compared to 13% of men, cited discrimination as a challenge they've experienced during their career. And I, for one, can share that I've also experienced that. When I joined the industry, I experienced significant discrimination. One, because I was a woman and in the role. Two, because I came from global education and not from cybersecurity. And three, the color of my skin. So, you know, it is a reality that is out there. And if we continue talking about it and discussing it and identifying it and not being afraid to raise it, we can change it. But we have to be able to be bold to stand up and share that it exists. And this discrimination is detrimental to our profession if we are to get the best talent available. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe? As we can see, there is a clear disparity, but also a common set of objectives. When asked about success they have achieved in their careers, men scored higher than women in some crucial areas, often directly attributed to success, satisfaction, and professional achievement. As a whole, the study found women and men in cybersecurity report similar satisfaction levels with their work, with 69% of women and 66% of men saying they're either very or somewhat satisfied in their jobs. However, the number is more skewed toward women in the very satisfied category, but where you've got 34% versus 27%. A majority of female cybersecurity professionals are successfully progressing in their careers. Nearly 1/3, 32%, say they're exactly where they were expecting to be with their career, compared to 20% of men. Another 33% of women say they're very close to, and 22% moderately close to where they expected to be. Looking ahead, more than half of women in cybersecurity, 53%, say they have a good idea of their desired career path, compared to 48% of men. Overall, women in cybersecurity seem to have a clearer expectations than men in how they envision their career tracks and the level of success they've attained. If we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe. Salary disparity. Women get paid significantly less than men, and the differences are especially pronounced in North America and Europe, where men on average earn about $16,500 more than women. The average salary for women cybersecurity workers in North America is just under $80,000, compared to about $96,000 for men annually. In Europe, the average salary for women is about $40,500, and for men, $67,500. So we can see there a huge disparity. I would like to really understand from you as well is, what do you think we can do to eliminate that disparity? And we can address that if there is time at the end of this talk. If we move on to the final slide, please. Thank you. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Phoebe? Thank you. In summary, the global cybersecurity workforce gap may be daunting, and the male-female workforce disparity continues to be challenging, but neither is insurmountable. Women continue to make gains in the cybersecurity field, with many embracing the profession as a rewarding career path that they plan to stay on until retirement. While the overall trend is positive, some issues still need to be addressed. Women in the field face more discrimination and receive lower compensation than men. If these inequities are corrected, the cybersecurity profession may attract more women. This would benefit business by boosting diversity and attracting different points of view, and for the industry by helping to close the workforce gap of 4 million workers. Final slide. And the final point I want to make is that if we move on please Phoebe, kind of research interests you, please do visit our website at isc2.org/research and download more of our recent research output. More insights will be coming out as well in the next few months. I'd like to take this time again to thank you for your time and attention. It's been my absolute pleasure to be here today. Thank you to Firebrand for providing this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deshni. We really appreciate you delivering that webinar and participating in Firebrand Sprint. It's been incredibly educational. I just have one question, if you don't mind, regarding the salary disparity. Women aren't comfortable to challenge this. From my understanding, it's not only regarding cybersecurity and the product of technology, it's generally. So specifically in the technology industry, what would you recommend on how to approach this sort of difficulty?
Absolutely, that is a brilliant question. You know, we have this challenge not just in our industry, but in all industries. And as you say, women are not comfortable to brace this. And we need to provide the training and the mentoring to do that. So I would appeal, I think women need help from men on this. One, you know, there are HR policies, there are bands within which you need to have somebody in a salary band. And really, we have to rely on HR policy to advise the directors, the managers that are making that decision, to base that decision on criteria. There has to be that criteria, and that criteria has to be transparent. And my advice to women, if you feel that there is this disparity, is to ask for that criteria. And most of the time, you know, we don't feel bold enough to do it, or we don't feel comfortable to do it. So we have to get that help. We have to get that mentoring help in order to get that. I've met women who've said, you know, oh, I don't mind, I always ask. I'm one of those who's always found it really difficult to do it. I have found it really difficult to actually brace that topic. And it's and I think some of it comes from culture as well, you know, just the way we as women are, you know, not wanting to discuss the topic, and we don't. In other cultures, it's probably easier, or people feel they can, or feel bolder to do it. But I think, again, it comes down to finding that mentorship and also being able to talk about it. And this is what's great about the research. The research is saying, we've got a problem. There is a challenge in this industry. We've recognized this challenge. We're putting this research out. And my appeal to all of you is to take it and talk about it and say, look, ISC Squared have done this research. It's showing that there is a salary disparity. What are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? So all we can do is put this out. But those of you on the call, you know, you're working at organizations all over, or you're at university and studying, call it out. Call it out. Don't just wait for webinars like this. If each, you know, I'm not sure how many people on the call today, but if each one of us on the call today start talking about it, that's going to start a conversation as well. You know, go onto LinkedIn and start a conversation about it, discuss it. And I'm sure a lot of more people will start talking about it, but we have to talk about it, and we need to not feel embarrassed to talk about it. Thank you, Phoebe. Are there any other questions? Phoebe?
Beg your pardon, was looking for the mute button.
Oh, it's all right. Fine. I think we've got about 5 minutes. I just wanted to know if there were any other comments or questions.
Any
that
other
you wanted to
questions?
ask.
Well, Callum has a suggestion, saying that we could invite our male colleagues to events like these to ensure they can understand the issues facing women in security, including pay, etc.
Absolutely, but I mean, this event is open to everybody, right, Phoebe? So it wasn't women only.
Absolutely, this was a global event, marketed on a global platform. But absolutely the case. If there is another sprint webinar that discusses women in cybersecurity, Deshni and I have also been talking about people of color or expats, immigrants, people not from the country they live in, how they work in cybersecurity, of ideas for future webinars as well, which are incredibly important topics. So if you do happen to see a sprint that regards those topics that are of interest to you, or you think your colleagues would be interested in them or should learn, please invite them. They are free webinars, and it's an incredibly important platform to learn and have these discussions.
Maybe there's a point from Ratia, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ratia, around having long-term illness, being of Eastern Asian background, yes. Social science degree, find it hard to get experience with any firm take me on. I mean, I would advise, maybe go to a local chapter meeting. That might be helpful. And you will find that there'll be lots of professionals. And I know it's, with COVID, it's quite difficult with not having face-to-face meetings, but look out for any online meetings and join any kind of chapter. The IC chapters are open to non-members. So try and join a chapter meeting, find somebody in the profession, and just try and talk to people that are in the profession that are out there, and see if you can find somebody that can help you or can give you more advice and, help you find some work experience as well. But just keep trying. I mean, the thing is, it's important to just keep trying. Don't give up. Just keep trying. Are there any other comments or questions, Phoebe?
No, nothing more. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Deshni. Thank you, IC Squared, for getting involved. Obviously, we've been partners for a very long time, so very happy when we can collaborate together and have these important conversations and deliver this information to the public. On that note, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy, healthy, safe weekend, and look forward to you attending another sprint, and hopefully Deshni will see you soon again.
Absolutely.
As well.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.